Hello and welcome to our Gold participants from around the world. I'm Fiona Lang-Sharp, IBCLC Public Relations Manager and MC for Gold Lactation Online Conference 2016. And it is our 10th anniversary, and I am so excited to welcome Barbara Wilson-Clay, who's going to be our keynote presenter at the end of our conference. So welcome, Barbara. How are you doing today?
I'm just fine. It's a beautiful spring day here in Austin, Texas, and I'm just so delighted to be the keynote speaker for your anniversary celebration.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. And what an appropriate title that you have for your presentation. And we're so excited to have you speak to this. And I'm just going to read it to everyone. Looking both ways, taking wisdom from the past into the future. Couldn't be better timed for all of us here at Gold as well. So, Barbara, first of all, I would love it if you would just share a little bit about yourself to our listening audience today and tell them a little bit about your professional journey.
Well, thank you. It's always kind of a toss-up how I'll think about my professional journey given any particular day, but today I'm thinking a lot about bonding, and I guess that's because I have a box full of baby chickies in my house, and I'm brooding them and getting ready to turn them loose to the bigger flock, and it made me think about how my life has so often been about nurturing. Being the oldest of 6 children, I had a lot of experience helping raise my brothers and sisters, and I was kind of the go-to babysitter in the neighborhood, and then kind of grew up and grew into a teaching profession. That's what I was professionally educated as, was a teacher, and I taught school for a while, and then I became a child abuse caseworker, and it was really there that my thinking about bonding crystallized, because anyone who knows anything about that work knows that there are so few solutions to those kinds of dysfunctional family dynamics. And I started reading in the literature in that field, trying to see if there was anything anybody had ever come up with as a way to help those families and to help parents feel more committed to protecting their children. And that really led me to investigations of the bonding theorists. And right about that time, I became pregnant with my first child, and I started reading the books about natural childbirth and about how gentle birth could affect the bonding experience. And that became a piece of my journey, thinking about that issue. And then I discovered Karen Pryor's book, Nursing Your Baby. And Karen is somebody who I'm going to mention in passing in my lecture, and she was enormously instrumental to my thinking, because her book, which was at the time the only sort of commercially available book about breastfeeding in the country in 1977 when I read it, drew from some insights from the work of Niles Newton, who I will be mentioning at some depth in my talk. And both Dr. Newton and Karen Pryor were behavioralists, and they were essentially looking at the biological impact on psychological health connected with women's reproductive issues. And I was completely spellbound by this work. And Karen Pryor made the point that lactation was a critical part of the reproductive cycle, and that when women lost the ability to experience a happy lactation, a happy breastfeeding experience, that was a source of grief to them. It was sort of synonymous to the sadness that women felt when they experienced miscarriage or any kind of dysfunction in any aspect of their reproductive life. And that got me thinking about these profound biological connections between mind and body, and how bonding could be the key to perhaps improving the attachment between mother and child, so that mothers would feel more committed to protecting their offspring. And that really became one of the founding principles of my work as a lactation consultant. How can we protect mothers? How can we give them a gentle birth experience and make sure that their lactation proceeds without trouble and distress? How can we help them to attach deeply to their babies and become their babies' strongest defender. And there isn't a great deal of literature in the lactation world about the connection between preventing child abuse and neglect and breastfeeding, but what little there is I find extremely compelling. And I've pretty much dedicated my career to making sure I'm a working LC. What I do is I help mothers have a happy breastfeeding experience, and I think of that as primarily to prevent child abuse and to promote attachment. And this is something that really informs my work. And my work as a teacher has informed my work as a lactation consultant. I'm always thinking about how can I say things so that it really makes sense to people? How can I reach that woman's best way of learning something? How can I create a material that's simple enough to really communicate the idea that I want to communicate? So all of these things kind of play into it, and the fact that I just love babies. I've spent most of my life doing things with and for babies, so lactation consulting was really a perfect profession for me.
That is so wonderful, Barbara. I feel what came to mind when I was listening to you, it just sounds like you are the voice to this, you know, and I feel sometimes things go unspoken, and it's so wonderful that you are so invested in this, and I surely appreciate it. You have a lot to teach us, and I can't wait to learn more from you. So I wanted to, I mentioned at the top of the hour here that it is our 10th anniversary this year, and we're so excited to, again, to be celebrating with you, Barbara, our listening audience, and all of those that are going to be reaching this open access keynote presentation. I forgot to mention that, so everyone will have an opportunity to listen to this. But in celebrating 10 years, there's a lot of reflection that we do. We talk about where we've come from, where we're going, all of those great things. So perhaps you would like to just reflect on some of the biggest changes that you've seen in your career, and you know, what keeps you inspired over the past 10 years, where you've come from, and of course where you're going. Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Well, I'd love to. And of course my participation in this profession extends back a bit further. I became a La Leche League leader in 1981 and was part of the professional liaison department of La Leche League International that made the decision that there needed to be a cadre of professional lactation consultants, that there was more work to be done than could be done in a sustainable manner by volunteers. So my sort of institutional memory goes back at least 30 years, if not a little farther, in this. And one of the things that really always strikes me as being quite wonderful is the explosion of serious research in the field of human lactation, and the physiology and anatomy and things that, you know, really were not completely elucidated back when I began. In fact, we had so few resources, teaching resources. There were very few textbooks. There were almost no photographs of things. If somebody said, well, I'm seeing a baby who has a tongue tie or a cleft of the soft palate, one almost had to imagine what that might look like. That was something that really impelled me in my own work to begin to take photographs, clinical photographs, because as teacher, I was quite aware that, you know, whenever I was called upon to try to help mentor somebody or teach a class at a nursing school or whatever, there was literally nothing that I could show anybody. So I decided to start taking pictures myself, and I think that has changed a great deal. Now there are many more resources, many more wonderful textbooks, and so many serious scientific researchers who are now exploring at increasingly deeper levels, down to the DNA of human milk, to understand better what the anatomy and physiology and the biology and the chemistry of all of this means. And that is huge, and I think it's added respectability to our profession. We're taken now, I think, a great deal more seriously, and I think that that's all to the good. We need to be an evidence-based profession. I think one of the things that never changes is the passion of the people who are involved in this profession. I think that this is a field that draws people who are very committed. They want to do good. They're fascinated by every aspect of it. My late husband used to laugh and say that he knew many of my colleagues, and he used to laugh and say that most of us would get up every morning and pay somebody $100 to be allowed to practice. And it's still true.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun, and you're absolutely right. Being in this field, I sometimes, when I was getting into it, Barbara, I remember the days when I thought I was the crazy one, that I just had all this passion. But boy, there's so many women and some men too in this field that are so passionate about what we do, and it is wonderful to share in all the events with you, that you've experienced, and of course I know many more to come in the future. So lastly, Barbara, perhaps you would share with our delegates a little bit, just a snippet. Don't give too much away now, because I want everybody to come on the day, but why don't you share just a little bit about what's coming up for your presentation, or what you just really want people to know as they come into your space as you present on this wonderful topic?
Well, being given the chance to deliver a keynote is an awesome responsibility, and I thought long and hard about what I wanted to talk about, and in some ways I've kind of thrown everything but the kitchen sink into this talk, because I really wanted to talk about some of the people who came before us, who had experiences and taught things that we really should not forget. I wanted to honor some of those people who I consider to be founders of the profession, but who were actually a generation even before mine. So I feel saddened that some of them are being completely forgotten, and they were giants in their fields and they shouldn't be forgotten. So I'm going to talk about some of them. And I also wanted to honor some of the people who I think are working in the world today and who are kind of unsung heroes. They have come up with ideas that are really fantastic. They're kind of carrying on that tradition of sometimes having to work in situations that many of us would find quite desperate, and yet they're managing to make things work. They're managing to save lives in environments that are quite challenging. So I wanted to honor them as well. And I also wanted to talk about the whole idea of what we do when the lights go off. And that's kind of a grim subject, but this is a world in which there are conflicts and huge migrations of refugees in crisis and large footprint natural disasters. And as big of a fan of technology as I am, and I am definitely on the side of liking the efficiency of technology to solve problems, but I think we forget about low-tech solutions at our peril. And I think that the other thing that I really wanted to remind people about is that when the lights do go off for whatever reason or for however long, there are things that we can learn from the past that can keep babies alive through breastfeeding if we need to utilize them. So those are tools that I don't want to see fall completely out of fashion, and I'm going to try to revive that knowledge a little bit in this talk as well.
Well, that sounds awesome and exciting, and I can't wait to hear, of course, the full talk. I want you to do it right now, Barbara. Just like, come on, let's just do this.
Have to wait.
That's right. But we don't want to, we want it to be a very special moment for you, and we've waited to have you here at Gold, so we're really looking forward to having you. So thank you for sitting down and chatting with me today. It's been lovely having you. I'm going to remind everybody of the date, because this is an open access keynote presentation at the Gold Conference, and it's going to be on May 4th. You do need to register for it, so you can just go to our website at www.goldlactation.com, and we'll look forward to having you. So May 4th at 1700 and 2100 GMT time, so mark it on your calendars. Barbara, I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun having you, and we're going to have a great time that day. So thank you so much again for sitting down and just sharing so much of yourself with us today.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Well, bye-bye for now. We thank you for being with us. Take care, everyone.